All right, this is Thunder and Trae live on your Monday morning drive. That's right, Monday morning coming at you live here on Crossover Radio, hashtag radio with a purpose. So glad to be with you all this morning. It is, man, so many things have gone on the past week, and so many things to cry about, so many things to be happy about, and we'll talk about all those things and more this morning. Sorry to be coming to you a little bit late this morning. It was a bit crazy out there on the highway. If you want to this is the highway traffic report here on Crossover Radio. There is a lot of traffic right there on I-40 before the 235 interchange. And so if you want to watch out, other than that, the streets should be clean. That's right, this morning here on Crossover Radio. Man, Dustin, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. We actually are joined this morning. In fact, I'll let him introduce himself. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, everybody. This is Steve-O. I made some appearances on the 3D Sports Show. I'm going to be filling in on 3rd and 1 for a while.
Awesome. Well, we're so pumped to have, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? You said Steve-O, right?
Yeah.
Steve-O. Nice.
I'm a native Minnesotan, decked out in my Vikings gears for the NFC North champion. And I moved down to Oklahoma about 15 years ago. And
What brought you to Oklahoma?
my wife.
Oh, okay. Cool. She from this area?
She's originally from the wild west out in out past Mustang,
Yes.
Lokiba, Binger, Hinton area.
Oh, wow. You weren't kidding about Wild West then.
Yeah, went out there and jumped right into the middle of it. I had some instruction as far as the whole Bedlam thing, since her paycheck said OU School of Nursing.
Okay,
So
there you go.
So you got an introduction quick then.
jumped into Oklahoma, landed on one side right off the bat.
What side did you land on?
The OU side.
Okay. I was about to say, I didn't know if it's a house divided here or what.
Oh no. It was pretty clear. If you weren't Crimson and Cream, you were sleeping outside, and the law was laid down, and everybody followed it.
You like sleeping inside, then I take it.
Oh yeah.
I get that for sure. Well, hey, speaking of OU, man, the national championship semifinals were this past Monday. What were you guys' thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. Terrible second half. Absolutely, yeah. Man, I mean, it was one half that seemed like it couldn't go wrong for OU, except for, I guess you want to say, the very end of that game. And then secondly, the second half, man, it just seemed like an absolute meltdown. And offensively, defensively, everything just went wrong in the second half. Maybe for a couple of drives where they scored. And also that scoop and score at the end. But yeah, I was super disappointed and super sad. It's sad to see Baker Mayfield go out like that. So
Yeah. What did you think, Steve? I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
It was literally like two different games.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was.
And the idea that you could have not one, but two running backs average over 10 yards a carry is absolutely ridiculous. And I don't care if they're all-American caliber running backs. You look at Chubb and Michelle, and even if you held them to their season averages of 7 and 6 yards a carry, OU probably wins that game in regulation.
Yes. No, I completely agree. I think it was a thing of definitely a tale of two halves. You had the defense, which was atrocious almost the entire game. I mean, almost the entire game. I didn't expect them to play that poorly against what was a pretty they're not as one-dimensional as Ohio State was when we played them earlier in the year, but they're still more one-dimensional than most teams in the Big 12. And I just thought they just got manhandled up front, and that's where it happened. It was on the line. That's where they got just absolutely destroyed.
Manhandled on the line, and then the linebackers were non-existent in that game. The inside linebackers were non-existent, and then there are so many plays where, I mean, one of their running backs would break into the secondary, and I saw two different plays where the safety fell down. just straight up fell down. And I mean, that's when you have one of those long plays break down like that.
Yes.
There's a few people that have done things wrong. One, the linebackers have missed their assignment, and two, something's going on with the safeties, and that happened on both those long run plays. So.
I just want to throw out a ray of hope to OU fans everywhere.
Okay.
The linebacker play was abysmal.
It was.
But there was not one, not two, but 3 4-star linebacker recruits who committed to OU over the weekend.
Yes.
So
agreed.
So while the linebacker play was horrible, the 2020 linebacker play will be exceptional.
Well, and I think even this upcoming year, because here's the bottom line too. Those guys that are in there right now, some of them were really highly touted. In fact, I believe Caleb Kelly was 5-star, right?
Yeah, he's kind of playing more of an outside linebacker Sam role right now. But even he didn't have a great game.
No. And my point is, with having those other 4-star guys in there, you're going to have a lot of competition. And I'm a firm believer that competition, in most cases, breeds better players. When you have someone right behind you, when you know, I got to perform, it's going to push those guys. Because this year, I mean, obviously, there was no one else to even step in. There was no one to even think about coming in besides those guys, because they are that depleted at the linebacking core. But now you have 3 4-star guys coming in who were pretty highly recruited and should do a really good job for them. I know that there are a lot of people that are excited about those guys. You have a guy that will be a linebacker most likely, an outside edge rusher. He was playing D-end in high school, but he was super they were really excited about him, but they're going to probably move him to outside linebacker. He's going to probably push Caleb Kelly inside a little bit more.
I would think so.
And it's going to be a little bit more natural for Caleb, I think.
Yeah, Caleb, he's kind of gotten that size now, and he really didn't have that size when he first stepped on campus.
No.
But Schmidt's kind of got him built up. I think that's the best move if you're OU. I want that guy running my defense. So,
yes, completely agree.
Yeah, let him run sideline to sideline instead of just he definitely has some pass rushing capabilities and skills, but
I don't think it's his strength, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other big strength is when your linebackers are not good enough to turn pro, all of a sudden you've got a guy like Kenneth Murray Jr. who's going to wind up being a 3 or 4 year starter.
Yes.
So down as ugly as the Georgia game turned out to be, the future, even on the defensive side of the ball, is looking bright for the Sooners. The question then becomes, is Mike Stoops calling the shots for improved defense, or is somebody else?
Yes, I think that is a good question that we need to get into, and I think we'll have a lot of discussion about this morning. I know that there have been people around the program that say they still feel like there's about a 55% chance he will be there, more than likely, which aren't great odds, but still better than what I would have thought initially.
Yeah.
But that there will be coaching changes. I know that there are people that are close to the program. One Al Ashback who is talking about there will be coaching changes. It's not a thing of if, there will be. Now he's going to also, talking about Lincoln Riley, he's going to be hiring his 10th coach. And so this is going to be interesting. There are some people thinking that he may choose his brother, which would be an offensive move. I think that would be kind of interesting. But what are you guys' thoughts on what he should do and what you think he will do for his 10th coach?
I think he will do an offensive coach, and I understand that just looking at the way their coaches are aligned right now, they have more defensive coaches. I mean, you have a defensive end coach, a D-tackle coach. They have outside linebackers, inside linebackers, safeties, cornerbacks coach. So they have every position on the defensive side of the ball locked up. Now, obviously, that is the weaker group of the team.
Yeah.
So, and looking at the offense, I mean, that unit was absolutely awesome. So my thing is, I don't think that Lincoln's going to fire Mike. I think the only way that Mike leaves is if he leaves on his own accord, if he gets a different job. But rightfully so. If you're a Sooner fan out there and you're calling for Mike Stoops' job, I think you have every right to do so. I do think Mike Stoops is a good coach, but for whatever reason, I think he knows the X's and O's of the games, but for whatever reason, it's just that voice hasn't been able to get those players motivated. And And I think you're talking about some of those different coaching changes. I think Tim Kish is a guy that you can look at who is the inside linebackers coach. Hasn't brought in a lot of great recruits at the inside linebacker spot in a few years. And so with even if you're looking at Kenneth Murray, he was a guy that was brought in as an outside linebacker, kind of beefed up his freshman year before he started and moved inside. And you saw in that game, I mean, he just was not prepared. Absolutely not prepared. Was hitting the wrong gaps, looked lost at times, was getting eaten up by some blocks. And, it's just sad because I think Tim and Mike are pretty good coaches. I think they know the game well, but they have not gotten their players to produce. And so because of that, if you do that at a place like Oklahoma, it's hard to keep your job. And
the coaching staff is taking a lot of heat after the loss. The question I want to throw out is it a coaching gap or is it a talent gap? Because if you look across the D line, we lost Phillips a couple years ago. We lost Stryker. We had one difference maker on the D line. I mean, and I think that Gallimore probably underperformed in the Georgia game, and he was the guy who midseason looked like he was going to step up. And
he didn't play much during the Georgia game. I think he's kind of been off this last.
And that's what
few games of the
I know.
year.
Some people have asked about is what happened with him because he was doing so well earlier in the season, and so what happened with Gallimore? I think that's a relevant question as well.
Did you guys see that Lampkin is probably going to declare for the draft? Devontae Lampkin,
what,
the defensive tackle? Yep.
For real?
Yep.
He's really wanting that 5th round draft slot. Is that what?
I don't even know if he'll get drafted, honestly. But
I think he's getting bad information.
I'm sure there's been an Asian out there that said, "Hey, you can go this year," and I think he's kind of been known as a guy that does not like going to class. He had that 6-game suspension at the beginning of the year. I'm pretty sure that was for missing class. Yeah. And so I think that's just, hey, I'm getting out of college. Get to the league, make some money, and a free agent makes more in the NFL than a college student. So,
and we may have answered our own question. That's what happened to Neville Gallimore, is that Devontae Lampkin came off a suspension and ate up a bunch of his minutes.
And he played well. He did play well at the end of the year, but I was still surprised because even with that, Lampkin definitely did eat up a lot of the minutes, but I still thought Gallimore was going to get a little more playing time than he had at the end of the year, and quite honestly, a lot more production at this year. I thought this was going to be his big, breakout year on that defensive line. So, and now you're talking about that talent leaving. Man, all of a sudden, now that inside linebacker spot looks pretty thin next year. So does defensive tackle, if you're looking at it.
I think the defensive tackle is a little bit thinner and more suspect, in my opinion, because I think the guys that they're going to move into inside linebacker, I think they'll be okay. I really do. I think that they'll be all right. And the guys they have coming in, I think that they'll be okay. Yeah. I mean, you have a bigger high school player coming in who's going to move to outside linebacker. Depending on how things go, though, in the spring, you may wind up switching him up and moving him inside at different times. I'm definitely curious. So on the Mike Stoops question, and I know you posed that. So here's the thing for me. Do I think that he will be there? I don't want to say what I feel is probably going to be the case because I do think that he's going to be there. And the problem I have with it, and I know a lot of people are like, well, he's doing this, doing that, blah, 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 blah. Okay, here's the bottom line. In the CFP playoffs, okay, college football playoffs, there were 4 teams. Alabama, Georgia, and Clemson were ranked number 1, 2, and 4 in terms of defense in the nation. 1, 2, and 4. Oklahoma, 52. Now, I know that sometimes it is a talent gap, and I do agree with that. That part of that is the talent gap. But I think that also it is a coaching gap. And here's the bottom line, too, is the coaches also have a hand in recruiting. And so if you don't have the recruits, part of that's on the coaches. And then if you don't have good coaching up the recruits that you got, because here's the bottom line is they still had a 5-star.
Yeah.
They still have 4 stars. They should be coaching these guys up to where they're not the 52nd ranked defense in the nation. Now, if you want to talk about respectable numbers, 20 to 30s, I would be a little bit more understanding and be like, hey, that matches up with their talent. And that's where they should have been. But they're not. They're consistently not. Their guys are consistently not performing up to the level that they should get to. You don't have guys typically overperforming like you do at many other programs in the nation. When you have a great D coordinator, you typically have guys outperform their spot. You typically have guys live up to their hype. Now, I know it's not every player in every program, but you have more of it happen, and there's just not a lot happening at Oklahoma.
Do you want to hear something that just really levels the accusation against the Oklahoma defensive coaching staff?
Yeah, let's hear it.
The absolutely 100% marginal Minnesota Golden Gopher football program is putting as many defensive players in the NFL as Oklahoma as the last 3 seasons.
That's a shame.
I watched Devondre Campbell tear it up for the Falcons against the Rams this weekend, and I thought that's my old school. And Minnesota has no business being on equal footing with the Sioux.
Exactly.
Minnesota is K-State in a bad year.
Yes.
And the thing that if I'm Mike Stoops, I'm really concerned about is one of the few people that Lincoln Riley brought with him is Ruffin McNeil, who was a D coordinator with him at Tech.
Yep.
And has a coaching style that's aggressive,
very aggressive,
and blitz heavy. And if you've got a lot of light linebackers,
which
like
they do,
Kenneth Murray, like Caleb Kelly, use their speed. That's what made Eric Stryker great, was that he was faster than every tackle that he was going against.
Yeah, he didn't necessarily have a lot of power advantage on those guys. But, man, I mean, guy could move. And here's the other bottom line to it, too. Mike Stoops used to be super aggressive. But I think his style of defense and everything just does not fit the personnel. And, again, I feel like whether you want to put it all on Mike or not, I don't think that's fair because there are other defensive coaches there, too. But I just don't feel like they are getting the players to the level that they need to.
Oh, I think the Big 12 has absolutely terrified Mike Stoops.
Yeah, and the bottom line is you gotta get more aggressive. I mean, that's the bottom line.
I mean, the defense that he puts out on the field is so afraid, I feel like, of a big play. They play their quarterbacks 10 yards off the field. They rarely blitz. The Ohio State game.
The Georgia game was atrocious for that. You saw they look like they were tentative. They look like they were just trying to not screw up. That's what they look like. Instead of going out there and playing and setting the tone.
And that's where I think you're talking about coaching changes. Like, I do think Mike's a good coach. I think the Big 12 has ruined. I think he knows the game well.
Yes.
But what has happened to that defense is they have started to play tentative. They've started to play scared. I just think it is time. It's time for a new voice. It's time for a new voice to go motivate those players to say, hey, we're going to attack the offenses. And we're not just going to sit back. And that's just how I felt as an OU fan for the last, 3 or 4 years when Mike's run the defense, that it's just been, okay, let's get out there and let's try to limit the offense instead of attacking the offense. It's just let's basically take what they give us, and there's just no aggression towards it at all. And it's been bad to watch. So
yeah, it really has been.
And playing it safe hasn't benefited his defense. I mean, you look at the Baylor game this year. Baylor was able to stay with it, stay and trade punches with them.
That was embarrassing.
And there was a bunch of games where they're winning, 48-35.
Yeah.
And the poor offenses. The K-State offense. Tech is going to score its points regardless, just because of the system they run. But some of the more marginal Big 12 offenses were putting up big numbers against OU because, you know what? If you give their receivers a 10-yard cushion, You're going to let them move the chains an awful lot before you toughen up inside the 20, and that's not going to work when you go play the big boy programs.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Let's do this, guys. Let's go ahead and roll to a break real quick. Whenever we come back, let's pick up this conversation. We'll talk about the national championship game, which is going on tonight. Interested to hear you guys' thoughts on who the winner will be out of that matchup. Alabama versus Georgia. That is going to be a very interesting game for me, just because I'm really interested to see if Georgia can do it. I think that they have the tools to do it. I'm just not sure if they have the confidence and the swagger to do it. But we'll see. We'll see tonight. It's all going to be laid out on the field. I definitely want to see Kirby Smart get one. I think that Kirby Smart seems to be a really good coach. I really have enjoyed a lot of what I've seen out of him. But we'll talk about that and so much more. And if you are listening this morning, thank you so much for listening. Drop us a comment. If you're on YouTube, send us a comment. If you are listening through the app and you are stopped and not driving, send us a text. You can send a text right through the Crossover Radio app. It's just right there when you pull it up. You can hit text. So if you can, drop us a comment. We'd love to talk with you and hear your thoughts about everything in the sports world, not just college football. And we'll be back after these short messages from our sponsors.
Hey, newly engaged couples, are you tired of the same ho-hum, boring wedding reception every weekend? Don't you want yours to be the party everyone's talking about 3 months later? Then give us a call today at BTP Productions. We offer online planning forms, the best OKC DJs, lighting and sound packages, ceremony packages, and anytime consultations. We put you in total control of your party so you get your reception your way. Call us today at 405-609-9980. That's 405-609-9980. Or find us on Facebook. That's Facebook. That's BTP Productions. The right music, the right DJ equals BTP Productions. Call today.
Crossover Radio is the best station I have ever listened to, even over other Christian stations. They are such a blessing. God uses this radio station that God started through the DJs and everyone on there to bless us and to show us Him.
Do you love coffee? Does your church, office, or business need coffee? What about getting amazing quality coffee at home from a business that serves our community and the world? Grounds for Compassion can meet your needs. The amazing staff at Grounds for Compassion would love to connect with you. There are 14 varieties, so you can't go wrong. Check out Grounds for Compassion on Facebook, Instagram, or at g4c.coffee, where you can place your order. Grounds for Compassion, coffee with conviction.
Crossover Radio. Radio with a purpose.
All right, this is Third and One live on your Monday morning drive. That's right, Third and One coming to you from Crossover Radio, radio with a purpose. We just got through talking about the OU loss to Georgia and Mike Stoops, his job status, if it should be in danger or not. We'd love to hear your comments on that. If you didn't hear it, you can roll back the tape on YouTube. That's right, YouTube. You can go to our channel, Crossover Radio on YouTube. If you search it, and you look for actual channels, you can actually find us. We're like the first or second one, I believe, now at this point, maybe second or third. And you can play back this tape. It's also on our Facebook page, Crossover Radio on Facebook. You can actually find the link. We posted it, and we post it every time we go on. That way you can find it and listen there as well. Man, so glad to be with you all this morning. We're actually going to be making our predictions in this segment for the national championship game. Talking about Alabama and Georgia, an all SEC championship game. Again, for the second time in history. That's right, LSU and Alabama was the first time that happened. Now Alabama and Georgia. This is ridiculous. Let's talk about it, though. Fellas, what do you think?
Man, I would have to think that the viewings would be down, don't you think? From like a traditional, if you were to say it was Ohio State and Alabama in there.
I think the fact that Alabama's there, you're going to get the draw of all the fans that want to see it. And you're also going to get the draw of all the people who want to see them lose. And so I think that's the only way that this works. If it were LSU in Georgia, I would be like, no, there's no way. This view is going to be bad.
It's a little bit like rooting against the New York Yankees or the Dallas Cowboys. Alabama has assumed the bully on the block role in college football, and there are a lot of people who follow the USC Trojans or any other storied program who want to see Alabama fall on its face.
Yes. No, I completely agree. I think it's going to be I think it'll be fun. I'm going to try to catch some of it tonight. But I mean, to your point though, I'm not as interested. I was more interested in the Clemson-Alabama game last year. I just thought it was a great matchup. I thought it was it'd be a great opportunity to see if Clemson can keep them from winning, all that kind of stuff. I like Jake Fromm. I think after, from a Christian perspective, I thought it was really encouraging to see not just Jacob Fromm, but also their running back. Which one of the running backs was it that was in the post-game interview right on the field, though? And they were talking about, man, just all glory to God, and they were just all about God. And I thought, man, regardless of me being an OU fan, here's the bottom line. Here's what I know. I'm not sure how many players would have gotten to actually be interviewed and give glory to God. Because I mean we know Baker Mayfield, we know how that is, we know what his standards and ethics and morals are or aren't, and he's actually talked about that a little bit, and here's the bottom line for me: God's name was given the glory, and so ultimately that's awesome, and that's more than what I could hope for out of anything else. As much as I'd love to see OU playing in this game, man, seeing God get the glory was even better. So. Just my thought.
I love when they get that part right.
Yes.
I used to hear things like, well, I really felt like God was on my side. God's on everybody's side. So when you actually say, I just thank God for the talent he gave me, or I just want to give glory to God, then you've gotten God's perspective right, and you're not, messing it up for people who aren't tight with Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's right on, and I mean about just the whole, hey, it's really about giving God the glory. It's there's so many times, and I hear so many people talk about it, and they'll be like, I'm just praying for OU to win, and I'm like, okay, that's the wrong prayer in my opinion, but here's the thing: you can pray for the players to play well, and ultimately all that, but again, it's all about God getting the glory. So, man, that was just really cool and encouraging for me. I know that there's very likely Christians on both sides of the ball in this game, and so, man, ultimately, I just hope that whatever happens, that God just gets the glory out of all of it, that His name is raised in it. But I think it will be a fun game. And here's the bottom line. Alabama's defense is filthy. Georgia's defense is really good. And Georgia's defense is going to be really filthy here in, 2 years? Since they got, how many 5 stars? How many 5 stars was it? Let me pull that.
The last 2 recruiting classes have been ridiculous for Georgia, and I think you're starting to see that play out. I mean, look at what they're doing this year with the freshman quarterback. Isn't it crazy that's the second year in a row that a true freshman quarterback is playing in the national championship game? And that's just going back to looking at what recruiting does for this game. Like Georgia, 3 or 4 years ago, even though they were in the SEC, we were not talking about them.
Yes.
And then their recruiting classes have just exploded. The talent, and that's kind of what you saw, I feel like, against Oklahoma. Like, think about if not Mark Andrews, like CeeDee Lamb or one of their offensive tackles went down. I mean, I think OU would have been devastated, especially on defense, if you had Kenneth Murray, who obviously didn't play great, or Emmanuel Beal go down. Then OU would have been scrambling for something to do. But, man, it just seems like Georgia was just throwing out one body after another. And looking at that depth, that's what you need in a championship team. You have to have the depth of high-quality players that if someone goes down, you can plug another guy in, and they're building that there in Georgia.
Hey,
for sure.
At least on one site, 24/7 Sports, they list a lot of the recruits, and I think they keep up with it pretty well. Out of the top 5 that they have listed for recruits, Georgia got 4 of them.
Ouch.
Wow.
Man, that's painful. And out of the top 10, Georgia got 6 of them.
When you are out recruiting Alabama, you are doing some damage.
Yep. I mean, it's just, I mean, the gap is growing and is going in Georgia's favor. And here's the bottom line. I mean, as much as I really liked Mark Richt, who is now in Miami, and I thought that Georgia I thought that Georgia was really wrong and dumb. I will be very honest. I thought they were dumb for letting him go. Because here's the bottom line. A guy that wins consistently 10-plus games a year in a conference called the SEC does not deserve to be canned, in my opinion. But you know what? It's worked out. For probably 80% of teams, that doesn't work out. And so the fact that it's worked out for them, Kirby Smart seems like a pretty solid dude. I haven't seen too much of him. I haven't heard too much from him, and so I'm not 100% on his character. But he seems like an all right guy to me. I mean, he seems like a really, really good guy. And here's the bottom line: with that kind of person running your program after Mark Richt was there, man, you couldn't have asked for much more, Georgia. And in fact, Georgia fans, you are getting some of the best recruits. If you don't do it this time, if you don't win one in the next couple of years, then I think you just have to look at yourselves and be honest with who you are. You got to look in the mirror and say, well, this is just who we are, because it's not happening.
If you go from winning 10 games consistently and firing your coach, and then you load up on 5 stars, and all of a sudden you're winning 12 games consistently but not winning a championship, at what point does your fan base get officially labeled as greedy?
Yes, most definitely. No, that's a great point. Man, so here's my overall thoughts on the championship game tonight. Do I think that Georgia can? Yes. Do I think that they have a little swagger after beating OU, coming from 17 back, and doing what ultimately has not been done before in the Rose Bowl? I mean, they did some amazing things. Okay, do I think that they can? Yes. Do I think that they will? It's like a 51-49 for me, but I'm gonna still side on Alabama. Maybe a 55-45, 60-40 kind of, but I mean, it's still really close for me. I don't think it's clear-cut. I don't think that either team has this dominant offensive player. They do have really dominant defensive players, but I don't feel like still that they're huge difference makers. Ones that you just point to and go, man, this guy is just a once-in-a-lifetime kind of player. And I don't feel like they have those guys on offense either. So I think it's going to be a really solid game. For Alabama to stop the run is going to be tough for them because Georgia has two guys that can hammer it.
I'm gonna take that one more. The one player we didn't see a lot of in the OU game was DeAndre Swift. He's their third running back who averaged over 8 yards a carry for the whole
just crazy
season.
Yeah.
And I think that the one place where Alabama is vulnerable defensively, and we saw it a lot in the game against Mississippi State, where Mississippi State hung in, is they can be beaten to the outside.
Yes.
And DeAndre Swift is the fastest tailback that Georgia has. So I think that of the people who are not getting a lot of publicity going into this, DeAndre Swift may be the wild card that helps Georgia get on top.
Yes.
If I were a gambling man, I would be hard pressed to put money against Nick Saban in the big game.
Yeah. Well, and here's the other thing that kind of gets on my nerves a little bit, and let me know what you think, Dustin. A lot of people keep talking about, and in fact, I'm looking at an article now that's saying this, and I heard this on the radio just the other day. They were talking about, man, it's all about Georgia's offensive line versus Alabama's defensive front. Well, that's partly true. You know what it's also about? Georgia's defensive line versus Alabama's offensive line, because defensively, Georgia was really good. And here's the bottom line for Alabama. When they've had really strong tests, in most of those games, they have not performed great. And when you have that much pressure coming down on your quarterback, on Jalen Hurts, who, I mean, granted, is a good player. I don't think he's the best quarterback that's ever played there at Alabama by any stretch of the imagination. I think you put some pressure on him. He's still a sophomore. I'm just not sure that he'll be able to cut it. And so if they can get pressure on him and sack him, get him in the backfield, keep him contained, I think that's going to bode well for Georgia. And so I think that's one of the stories that's not being talked about as much, is the flip side of that. Yes, I agree Georgia's offensive line's got to hold up, but I also think that Alabama's offensive line has to hold up, or else it's going to be a lot of problems.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at Alabama's defense, man, this time off has really given them time to get healthy.
Yeah.
And the quarterback advantage, I am going to give it to Jake Fromm right now, even though he's a freshman. Now, Jalen Hurts is a dynamic player in his own right. And what he's really done up to this point, I think, is awesome, because how many years have we said, well, I guess 1 year, but how many games have we said, Jalen Hurts isn't the prototypical quarterback. He's not going to, carry this offense. And he, for the most part, has proved time and time again, hey, I'm going to get things done. It may not be in the most efficient way. It may not be the most, just stereotypical way that you would think of a quarterback, or it may not be all glorious, but he still gets things done. And he kind of runs his own system of offense where it's not necessarily an option. He's not out there slinging it every game, but he kind of does a little bit of everything. He runs the option a little bit. He relies on that good offensive line and the running backs to get things set up, and then using play action pass to make a few easy, not necessarily NFL caliber throws, but man, they've really used that well to their offense there. And so it is going to come down of, can Georgia get pressure on him? Can they make Jalen Hurts beat them in the air through throwing? Because if you give them the run game, I think that's going to be, look at what Georgia did to OU when they just basically gave them the run game, which was, I don't know why. They were loading up the box. Well, we should say that. They weren't giving, OU wasn't giving Georgia the run game. They were trying to stop the run, and Georgia was just dominating. They were loading up the box. And I think, for me, I do think Alabama's going to win this game. Looking at the talent, I think that Alabama is still just a little bit above Georgia. I think Georgia next year will be right on par with Alabama as far as their depth and their defense. And now the running back, it's going to depend on what those running backs do for Georgia. It really is, because those guys are the playmakers on that offense. They are the ones that break things out. It's not really going to be Jake Fromm throwing it 50 yards downfield. So we'll see. I really do think that those three running backs are probably the best backfield in the country. Absolutely. And so we'll have to see how it goes. But I'm picking Alabama, and I think it's going to be closer than people think. I know a lot of people are saying Alabama is going to run away with it. But what do you think, Steve?
I think that you talked a lot about which quarterback is going to make the play in the air, because Alabama has a stable of backs who are good, but not quite as good as Georgia. But Alabama has one guy whose job is to catch passes, who's going to play on Sundays. Yeah. And that's Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, he's a bad man.
And he is Amari Cooper. He is, you can go back. There's been a wide out for Alabama who's been the man in the Saban era, whether it's Julio Jones or Amari Cooper, and now it's Calvin Ridley. Yeah. And my question is, can Georgia take Calvin Ridley away? Because
interesting,
because I can't name another player on Alabama who catches passes.
Well, it's I think a lot of the focus is going to be on them, and that's the weakness of this team. Now, as far as Georgia's defense is their cornerbacks. Now, here's a couple of things for me as far as where all that can kind of shake down a little bit. You've got, for one, a Georgia team which held OU's receivers really well, but that was primarily because of what they did up front in the second half. And I think if they can do that again, if they can get penetration, if they can get through the offensive line of Alabama, I don't think that's going to be as much of an issue, because then they can run a safety over the top to help whatever cornerback is covering Ridley. And so then you take away that option. Jalen Hurts is going to have to try to scramble and run, and I think that's not what Alabama wants. And plus, I don't think that they have the running game that they have in the past. I think that they're still solid. They're not bad. It's just they haven't had the running game. They don't have the studs that they've had in the past. Whereas Georgia, if you start shutting them down and you have to commit extra resources to their passing game, It's going to flip heavy on run, and because they've got a stable of running backs, they're not going to get tired at that position. And in fact, typically really good running backs get stronger as the game go on, and they've got at least 2 that are really good running backs. And so I just think that's just where a lot of this is going to kind of net out, is to see how poised can Jacob Fromm be. If Fromm can be poised whenever there's pressure coming down on him or whenever the things aren't going well, like what happened against OU. If he can be poised and just stay calm.
And he did a great job.
Yep, and not make mistakes, then I think that they'll be in it till the end. It's just going to be super interesting. I have a hard time still betting against Saban whenever Georgia doesn't have a lights-out player on offense right now. But man, I still think it's a coin flip. I mean, still like I was saying earlier, at best I would go 60-40 as far as percentage odds, because I just feel like it's that close.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at previous Saban championships, and he had Mark Ingram, who was a Heisman Trophy winner. He had Derrick Henry, who was a top 2 finisher, and they don't have a Heisman level player. I mean, Jalen Hurts is as close as it gets.
Yeah.
And he doesn't scare you beating you with his arm.
Yeah.
And he can make some plays, but he's not going to beat a top flight defense by going 30 out of 40 for 403 touchdowns. Yeah. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah. It's just not his style. It's not his style of play whatsoever. All right, so let's go ahead and make our picks. Let's make our picks. Let's roll to a break. Then we'll come back and talk about some NFL playoffs that are going on. What are you guys' picks for this championship game? And give me a score.
Ooh, I'm gonna go. I think it is gonna be a defensive battle. I mean, typical SEC football game. I'm gonna pick Alabama. I think we're going to be looking somewhere around I'll give Alabama 24 points. I think they're going to score 3 touchdowns and a field goal. So 24 points. I'm going to give Georgia let's go with 17. Now, if there's anyone I cheer for on Georgia, it's their kicker. Rodrigo. I love that guy. Oh, man.
He's amazing, though. I mean,
he's really good. He's really good.
Real quick, though, before we finish this, I just have to, on that comment, I forgot about this. Did you hear what Kirby Smart said about their 55-yard field goal before the half?
No.
He said if OU would have just put someone back there, he probably wouldn't have kicked the field goal.
Oh, like to return it?
Yeah, because it was a 55-yard.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a long field goal. And he was scared to death because of what happened with Auburn, Alabama, whenever he was an assistant there. Yep. And
I was wondering why, like, when that happened.
A lot of people were. And they were like, why isn't anyone back there to return? Yeah. Now, I just hadn't noticed it. I wasn't thinking about it. But, man, that was a great point. And he said, yeah, if OU would have put someone back there, I probably wouldn't have kicked it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so I'm saying 17-24. Alabama over Georgia, but man, if there's one person I'm rooting for, it's I don't remember what his last name is, but Rodrigo.
Blankenship.
Blankenship, that's right.
Yes.
I knew it was an interesting last name. It was not common. So.
One of my neighbors is a Georgia fan. She's from Georgia, and so she's watched a couple of OU games, and we've watched a couple Georgia games at her house or over there.
Yeah.
And, so I've seen Rodrigo a little bit through the year, and I've always said like I'm rooting for that guy. So even during the OU game, I was like, Rodrigo, my boy, I'll root for him. So now looking back, I kind of wish I wouldn't have, because he's one of the ones that won the game for him. But man,
that's weird.
Yeah, Rodrigo. That's the guy I'm rooting for. So
it's always easy to root for a guy who's half linebacker, half physics geek.
Yes, most definitely. All right, so what's your pick?
Well, I'm almost identical. I think it's going to be 24-16, and I think that Alabama pulls away with a non-traditional touchdown, either a punt return, an interception. Unfortunately, the scoop and score was not enough to carry the Sooners, but it is going to be enough to make the difference with the Tide and the Bulldogs tonight.
Man, I have about convinced myself out of Alabama. And I really want to root. That's the problem here too. Is my heart wants Georgia to win.
Yeah. No.
For a lot of reasons, and people are like, oh, it's just because you hate Alabama. No. And in fact, if there were anything, it would be I hate Georgia for putting OU out of it, which I don't. But I'm just saying, like, a lot of that logic is kind of faulty. Yeah, I don't like Alabama, and I hope that they do lose. But besides that fact, I really do want Georgia to win. Kirby Smart's. Here's the thing, Nick Saban is 11-0 against former assistants. I don't think that continues. He doesn't have anyone that's standing out. Kirby Smart's on a roll. I'm going to convince myself into this. I'm going to go actually Georgia 20. Oh, gosh. I'm going to go. They will at least kick one field goal. I'm going to go Georgia 24, Alabama 20.
Okay, I like that. So we do think it's going to be a pretty,
yes,
middle average scoring game. It seems like it's going to be that classic SEC battle.
Yeah.
But man, is there any thoughts before we roll this break of how Big 12 versus SEC defense? I mean, think about this.
It's writing itself.
Yeah, think about this. This was the first time OU has ever scored over 40 points and lost a football game. I think that plays into the defensive argument with Mike Stoops. It was they were like 40-0.
Yes. Well, and what I do not want to hear from people, and here's what you'll typically hear: oh, SEC defense, SEC. No. Hold on. They give up 45 points. Like, just slow your roll a little bit. It's not because SEC's defense was so good. It's because OU's defense was so bad. Now, I do agree, defense still would have helped them win the game if they would have had Georgia's defense just for 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
It would have turned out a different way. But still, Georgia still gave up 45 points. So I don't want to hear the whole rhetoric of, well, it's just because the SEC no, it wasn't a great defense. It really wasn't, considering how many points they gave up. It was just better than OU's, and that's the point. And I think that sometimes those things are so overlapped that sometimes they get confused. It's like, well, hold on, it wasn't a great defense. It was just that their defense was just better. And I think that OU's defense has to be better.
And that was probably Baker Mayfield's, probably worst game that entire year, if you think about it. He missed some throws.
Oh, man, we didn't get to talk about this either. But I felt like, yes, he did miss some throws, but Lincoln Riley got too tentative in the second half in the overtime. He didn't let him loose. He needed to cut him loose.
I think that the play calling got him out of the rhythm.
Yes,
absolutely.
They needed to cut him loose. They needed to say, go get it. You're the Heisman. We're going to trust you with the ball. Go get it.
They didn't adjust to the increase in blitzes that Georgia was doing, and all they needed to do was try some rollouts, move the pocket, make the blitz strategy ineffective, and they didn't make the adjustments.
They just rarely put the ball, especially in overtime, they just rarely put the ball in Baker Mayfield's hand. And I would go off on a rampage if we're talking about the option to the short side of the field, the speed option.
I think everyone knew how bad that was.
Yeah.
People who weren't fans knew how bad that was.
Yeah, against a fast defense, you can't run a speed option to the short side of the field with no
with your guy literally 5 foot from you. Literally, he could have handed him the ball. He didn't even have to pitch it to him. He could have handed him the ball.
Yeah, but I do think Lincoln's offensive genius. I
do too. I just think it was bad play calling.
Sure, absolutely. But all right, let's roll to a break real quick. We'll come back. We'll talk a little NFL playoffs coming up. Wild card weekend, right? Just happened, so we can dive into that. Steve, maybe talk a little bit about your Vikings.
Absolutely.
And we'll dive back into it. So anyway, this is Crossover Radio, 3rd and 1 Live, and we'll be back after these short messages.
City Life Community Church is the proud home of Crossover Radio. We are located at 6634 Northwest 36th Street, right here in the heart of Bethany. You can join us for worship at 11 a.m. each Sunday, and if you can't make it, you can hear us right here on Crossover Radio. You can also join us for worship and prayer each Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. City Life exists to glorify God by making disciples and doing good in Jesus' name. We are here for Bethany and for the Northwest Oklahoma City communities. We're excited about the opportunity to serve you and your family.
Would your business, organization, or ministry like to connect with our listeners? Crossover Radio is seeking amazing like-minded partnerships to impact our community. Crossover Radio has cheap and affordable sponsorship packages available now. Call us at 405-494-0234 so we can help connect you with thousands of listeners every week right here on Crossover Radio. Again, that number is 405-494-0234. Call us today.
Tired of taking up a seat in church or just watching a production? Join us Sunday at West Metro Community Church in Yukon, a place where your life matters and you are more than a number.
We are located at 601 West Main Street in Yukon, and our worship service is at 10:45 on Sunday. For additional information on our student ministry, men's, women's, and mixed small group Bible studies throughout the week, find our information at www.westmetro.org.
Come be a part of a church where all are welcome.
Crossover Radio. Radio with a purpose.
Prepare for launch in 3, 2, 1.
All right, welcome back to Third and One Live for your Monday morning drive.
Activate.
Oh, there we go. We got Steve and Evan and Dustin here. We are talking sports. We went pretty dang in depth into college football playoff, looking at the championship game, and back to OU and Georgia's matchup. We're gonna roll with some NFL talk here. It was AFC, or really the wild card weekend for the NFL. And boys, what do we think?
We had a lot of great games, and then we had Buffalo Jacksonville.
Yes, there's a lot of truth to that. Man, that Buffalo Jacksonville was bad. It was just really, really bad football on both sides. If the Bills would have had just a competent quarterback, I think they would be all right. Someone was actually, a fan burned Tyrod Taylor's jersey. It's like, dude got hurt. I mean, I realize he didn't play well, but dude got hurt too. So you know who he is. He's not going to change who he is. He is exactly what you saw. He's
Jalen Hurts in the pros.
Yeah, I mean, he manages a football game. He has his legs. Teams have to at least watch that, and he's not going to throw for a lot. It's just how it is. Blake Bortles continues to astound me how that franchise wants to continue relying on him. But you know what? They're winning right now, so you can't say too much. They're winning. But I don't think that they get past Steelers. I think the Steelers, I think Big Ben's going to light them up, as well as Le'Veon and Antonio Brown, who they say is now 100%. Now, I doubt that. No one's ever 100% at this time of the year.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's the bottom line. The most interesting game to me, not that it was the best game, but the most interesting game, the Titans and Chiefs. Did you see what started the comeback for the Titans?
No. I didn't actually. Was that the one? Was it the Marcus Mariota play?
Yeah.
Yes.
Where he threw it, it went up in the air, got tipped up in the air. He caught it himself and ran it in for the touchdown.
Yes. Wild.
That is a 12-point play in fantasy football in most cases.
Yes, most definitely.
Touchdown, pass, and reception.
Yeah.
That is amazing too. But man, that is it was an interesting game. That started the comeback though, and the Chiefs did not score after that. Period. They didn't score in the whole second half.
Isn't that kind of like typical Andy Reid, make it to the first round of the playoffs? Choke in the playoffs?
He made it to the NFC Championship game with McNabb at least 2 years, if I'm not mistaken.
He got into the Super Bowl, lost to the Patriots, and the thing was
like 4 other teams. Go ahead, sorry.
I watched most of that game, and they were early in the third quarter when the announcers started talking about, is this another Chiefs collapse?
Yes.
Are they
awesome.
haunted by their past? And sure enough, that's exactly what happened.
Hey, and Derrick Henry, man, talk about a man on offense. He is showing up. I think that after, and it's kind of unfortunate for DeMarco Murray, because DeMarco Murray has ultimately done, except for the 1 year in Philadelphia where that was more so on the coaching and bad offense, he has owned this league. And he really has. And as much trash as sometimes OU fans would want to give him at different times, here's the bottom line. He has owned this league whenever he got the chance. And it's just very unfortunate for him. He got hurt at this time, and he's got a great backup behind him who ran 23 carries, 156 yards, and a touchdown against the Chiefs' defense, which is no slouch.
Sure.
And so I think for Murray, he's going to be looking for another job next year.
I was about to say, do you think that the Titans are going to start moving to
yeah,
Henry's direction?
Because they want to move his salary into another position because Henry's got this thing shored up.
In a salary cap league, you can't tie up too much money in one position,
and
especially running back.
I think you're always looking to the future too, right?
Yes.
I mean, you say, okay, this guy is doing well. We're gonna start. He's younger, and he's costing us less money. We're gonna start move to him. Maybe release DeMarco or trade DeMarco or whatever it may be. Probably not just release, because then you're just gonna lose a lot of money that way. But trade DeMarco, and then you say, okay, we'll go in the draft, we're going to look for a backup for our new guy. And I think you may see that this year with the Titans. And so it'll be interesting, because I do think a team will definitely, give up a pick or something to get DeMarco, because he's still doing well, still has a lot of good years under him. He's not, he's not Adrian Peterson as far as age. And
I think they'll get a third or fourth round pick for him easily.
And the nice thing is, other than his time in Dallas, because he's gotten to share the load with Derrick Henry the last couple of years, the wear and tear on him is not.
He has some tear right now. He tore his ACL, right? So
I can't remember. I don't remember what it was, but that
I read a report. I think
he's day to day this week. So I mean, he's not too bad off.
Well, I think he tore his ACL, but is going to play through it. Like, I think that's kind of what the situation is.
Oh, dang.
Is that he tore the ACL, but he thinks that he doesn't need to have surgery until after the season. So which you can do. I mean, there's some people that don't have ACLs that are playing right now. But it kind of just depends on the person. Depends on, it's like each individual case, how your knee holds up. And running back, I'd be a little scared. There's a lot of cuts that you make.
Be afraid of his knee buckling.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's going to try to play through it. But, yeah, if I'm him, I'm thinking, okay, let's just look for this next destination. Let's get healthy.
Let me read off some stats for you guys for Murray real quick, because I'm very astounded by Murray as a player. He has 1,600 carries, just over 1,600 carries for his career, 7,174 yards. I mean, that is a good career in the NFL.
Absolutely.
I mean, if he plays another 5 years and can rack up 2,900 yards, essentially, a little bit less, I mean, he's at that 10,000 mark that gets people into the Hall of Fame. Okay, a lot of guys don't get to 10,000. 10,000 is a coveted mark. Yeah. He could possibly get to the Hall of Fame just because of how effective he has been. Now, the problem for him, he hasn't had a lot of the flashy seasons that typically get guys noticed, but you know what? The guy's been consistent. He has 307 receptions for 2,100 yards over his career, too. Touchdowns, 49. 49 touchdowns. That's just rushing, and he has 6 total touchdowns receiving. So, I mean, you're talking about a guy who has had a really good career. He's averaged 4.5 yards a carry in his career.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if he does go to another team, too, he knows where he needs to go. I mean, he needs to go to a power team with a good offensive line, running the I formation, because what happened in Philadelphia was not good, and which is crazy because that's what he ran in college. But he's basically turned into a completely different player in the NFL. He's definitely the patient back, one cut, get upfield, and he's done well with that ever since he was in Dallas. So
there's a team out there that was in the Super Bowl not long ago who has not had a decent running game since Marshawn Lynch left. DeMarco Murray goes to Seattle. All of a sudden, you've got a whole different look out in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great point. I didn't even think about the Seahawks, but I think that is a legitimate option for them. That is a very legitimate option. Here's the line for the Titans. They would have to trade him almost definitely. Here's where it breaks down, because they got 2 more years that he is under contract, 2, for a total of $13 million. And that's just base salary. So, I mean, we're talking about, or nearly $13 million. That is incredible. So, I mean, you've got a guy that you're going to have to unload some way. I do think that they would get that. I think they would get a 3rd round, 4th round pick for him, and be happy with that. I don't think there's any problem with that. And he would be happy too, because he probably sees the writing on the wall. He is likely the odd man out in that situation. All right, so let's talk about the upcoming playoff matchups this upcoming weekend, the divisional rounds. You've got Falcons, Eagles, and Saints, Vikings in the NFC. Let's start with the NFC. Need I ask, Steve-O, who you're taking in that Saints Vikings game?
I am unabashed, unapologetic homer when it comes to the Minnesota Vikings. I can stand firmly on the fact that they beat the Saints
Yeah.
in that same stadium at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
That is my analytical side. My emotional side is, as I've been following this team for 45 years. I've watched them lose multiple Super Bowls, and I just cross my fingers because Drew Brees has carved them up. He's carved up the state of Minnesota from the time he was playing in Purdue, beating up the Gophers. So
Yes.
I pick the Vikings, and I pick them with my fingers crossed.
Yes, no, that's well put. Man, as the resident Packer fan here, I do think that the Vikings do have the edge. I like Case Keenum more than probably most non-Viking fans, if I can put it that way. I think probably a lot of Viking fans are behind him and what he's been doing. But that's just kind of my thoughts. I think he's a great player. He's a competitor. He wants to go out there and compete. He wants to win. And you can't ask for much more than that whenever you have a guy who's competent and really wants to just go win. I think there's a lot of value to that. And they have good running backs. I love Latavius Murray. I think he is an excellent running back. It was a great pickup in lieu of the exit of Peterson at that point. And actually, I think he can kind of service them a little bit better than what Peterson did, just because of his ability to do a lot of different things. And he's more spry. I mean, he's younger. Less injuries and all that kind of stuff. So I think that the defense, though, is where it's at. I think the defense of the Vikings will get to Drew Brees a couple of times. But, man, you better be able to throw. I think the Saints do not leave without scoring at least 23, 24 points.
And it's gonna come down to turnovers is what it's gonna come down to, because although the Vikings are one of the top 5 teams in the league in drives over 80 yards, the Saints defense has improved so much.
Yes, it has.
Since they met in week 1. Lattimore has become a shutdown corner for them.
Yeah.
And so they're not going to get the open looks that they got to Thielen and Diggs in week 1. So I think it's going to come down to Harrison Smith or maybe even a big play out of the slot by Terrence Newman or Mackenzie Alexander that is going to they're going to need a short field to get the winning touchdown.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think that's spot on. I think it'll be a lot of fun either way. I think it's gonna be just a ton of fun. What about Falcons Eagles? What do you think?
I'm gonna have to take the Falcons on this one just for the fact that is it back to Folk? Nick Folk with the Eagles?
Foles.
Foles. Folk's the kicker, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Nick Foles is back with the Eagles. But I mean, it seems like Atlanta's kind of putting it together. They've been super iffy back and forth all year, and it's just they look like a team that should be fantastic on both sides of the ball.
And they just aren't.
Yeah, they have so many good players, and it looks like they're kind of putting it together.
Yeah, they do.
So I think it's good. I mean, this is the time of year where that happens. It seems like there's always one team that does poor in the regular season, and then at the end of the year, usually I feel like it's the Giants. But the Giants have just been abysmal all year. But usually I feel like the Giants are that team that they're kind of back and forth all year. They show some flashes. And looking at that, I'm just gonna take Matt Ryan, who has been playing a little bit better, but still not anywhere to what he's been playing in the past. I think they start to put it together. So it's more of just a feeling for me on the Falcons. Just saying, I think they're kind of the team that's gonna start to be better at the end of the year, which is a big part of the playoffs. I mean, that happens almost every year. So, and Philadelphia, their defense has been playing absolutely lights out this year. It's sad that Carson Wentz went down because they were looking to be one of the favorite teams.
It was they and the Vikings were on a crash course.
Yeah, absolutely.
They really were. I think it was going to be an incredible game. I'm sad that we're not going to get to see that. But I mean, I'm with you. I think that the Falcons are playing better. But here's where it's at for me. Here's the line for me. If Nick Foles does not throw an interception, I think the Eagles win. If he does, then they lose. I think that's where it's at. I think if that happens, they're done. I just don't think, A, he can recover from that, but B, I think if he doesn't, that means he's protecting the ball well. He probably has a touchdown because he will sling it some. He is he's a little bit of a gunslinger. That's just who he is. And he will get it out there. And he's got some receivers. He can really do some damage with Aguilar, with Torrey Smith, and of course Alshon Jeffrey. And so you got a guy there who can really do it. Jay Ajayi is a competent running back, more than competent, a really good running back. And so I just think that with their defense, it's really gonna be tough. But that's where the line is at for me. If I had to pick, I'm probably going to take the Falcons, but I really think there's a really strong chance that Foles doesn't have a breakdown in this game. Now, I don't think that he'll be able to do it for 3 straight games, but I don't think that he has a breakdown in this game, and I think that he could wind up winning it for him. But I'm still going to side on Falcons.
I am all for Nick Foles falling apart next week.
Of course you are.
Against the Vikings, and this is to your point, Evan, is that I think that Nick Foles needs to have confidence.
Yeah.
And an early turnover is going to take that from him.
It will break him.
And then it will fall apart quickly. Yeah. If he avoids the big mistake, the defense will carry the Eagles to the next round. But I am 100% believer in there's always one hot team.
Yes.
And I think Dustin's right that it's the Falcons now, because they had to win to get in. And then they beat 2 really good teams in Carolina and Los Angeles. So they're proven that they can win against good competition on the road. So as weird as it seems, we got 3 guys picking the lower seed in this game.
And then you got real quick to kind of wrap this up. We got Titans Patriots. I'm not buying into 100% of the hype about the Patriots being at the edge of doom and falling apart because of all this. Here's the bottom line: a family, and when you're close like a family is, I'm not saying that they are a family, but when you're close like a family is, you fight a lot. You have things you don't agree about, but you know what? You're still a family. And you know what the Patriots are? They're a business. You know what they do? They go out there and win football games. And you know what they've done for 17 years now? They've won football games to the tune of 5 Super Bowls and played in 7 of them. So all this nonsense about, it's all falling apart. I think that Tom's not happy about it, but you know what Tom wants to do? Tom wants to win. You know what Bill Belichick wants to do? He wants to win. So you know what they're going to go do this year? They're going to go put their best football on the field, no matter how they feel about each other. They're going to go put their football on the field because that's the kind of people that they are. Tom does not seem like a heavy emotion-driven person. And so just because he doesn't like Bill Belichick doesn't mean he's not going to trust him as a coach. There is a difference. And I think that Tom Brady is the kind of person that he compartmentalizes all that stuff, and he's like, you know what, whatever it is, football is still football. We're going to go win this game because you know what he wants? He wants another championship. He wants to put a 6th ring on. He wants to be able to throw it on 2 different hands. All right, that's what he wants. And so if he can get to that, he's going to do it. And so I don't think there's as big of a deal. I think the Titans barely won that game against an iffy Chiefs team, and you're just going to see the Patriots own it. And I think, like I said earlier, the Steelers are just going to own the Jaguars.
There is a game every year that is just a squash. Last year, it was the Chiefs fooling everybody by decimating a injury-riddled Texans team with the 3rd-string quarterback. Welcome to this year's playoff squash. It is the Patriots. It is the Patriots running away. It is the Titans going into the corner and whimpering because they are not ready for prime time. They may be in a year or 2, but this is bet the house, bet the kids, bet the dog on the Patriots.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I think it may be a little closer than we think. I think that the Patriots, for some reason, they've kind of been like the Thunder this year in a sense of like they played down to their competition.
Yes.
So I think it's going to be a little closer than we think, but I'm with you. I'm taking the Patriots all the way. I'm not a believer in the Titans at all. And so definitely picking the Patriots. I just think it's not going to be the runaway that we think. I think they're going to play down to their competition. So moving on from that, I think we're all picking the Patriots. And let's go to the last one, right? Did we talk about Jaguars?
Yeah,
Pittsburgh?
Pick Steelers. I just don't think that Jacksonville has enough on offense.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just don't believe in Blake Bortles. And the Pittsburgh, they just have so many playmakers on O, and their defense is always solid. And Jacksonville, to their credit, man, their defense is playing outstanding. But, I just don't think that as far as playmakers on offense, they have Fournette. But I just don't – if we're talking about a guy that you want to go win you a game in the playoffs, Blake Bortles is not a guy I'm picking.
Yeah.
And I think that the only thing worse than a really good balanced team is a really good balanced team with a cause. And Ryan Shazier is going to be sitting in the Rooney owner's box at Heinz Field, and they are going to cut to him a bunch of times during the game. And this is a Steelers team that is going to be committed to winning one for one of their fallen brothers.
Yes. Yeah.
And Jacksonville's defense is so good, it may be 17-13 slugfest. It may stay competitive, but I think Pittsburgh is as solid a bet as any to win this weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm with you guys. Well, hey, it has been so much fun talking with you guys, and for all of you out there. This is actually my last show, and so it was great to be able to cut it loose with you guys one more time this morning, talk some sports, and ultimately, like we try to do here at Crossover Radio, provide good, clean content, but also Christian-focused content. And man, I just want to give all the praise and glory and honor to God. Really appreciate the station for allowing me to be able to be on the radio for the time that I have been here. And but man, just going off on some different ventures for myself and my family. And so again, just really appreciate everything. It's been a lot of fun talking with you guys and being with you guys throughout all these months.
Yeah, definitely appreciate you, man. It's been fun getting to talk with you over these last few months about sports, and obviously wish you the best of luck, man, in the future with your family and everything you got going on. So it's been a pleasure.
Appreciate it.
I've got a big seat to fill, but I'll do my best.
I don't know about that. Only because I'm a big man. That's about it. So, but well, hey, for all of you out there, thank you so much for listening to Crossover Radio. Thank you so much for listening to Third and One. They will be back this Friday and talking some more sports with you all. And, man, you all have a great week. May God bless you. May he keep you. May he make his face to shine upon you. And may he give you peace.
All right. That's it. We're out. Peace.
Take care.
Selector, the number one.